With the New Orleans Pelicans standing at the top and Williamson having the most incredible last few weeks of his career, we reckon this might be the year for the Pelicans. Having one of the league's deepest lineups with young defensive aces like Jones, experienced bruisers like Jonas Valanciunas, and cult favorites like Jose Alvarado, they're on fire. In today's video, we'll talk about the Pelicans and what the future has in store for this rising NBA team. Let's dive in. First, the future of the Pelicans rides on more than just Zion. In one of the league's smaller markets, the Pelicans have a terrific value squad that will get more expensive, with their starting point guard CJ McCollum leading the National Basketball Players Association's labor negotiations, and the team owner Gail Benson becoming a member of the elite and influential owners committee involved with developing league strategy. The Pelicans' future may depend on superstar Zion Williamson's health and ongoing development. However, it may also rely on the arrangement their organizational leaders are negotiating. Despite being the centerpiece, the Pelicans opened the week leading the Western Conference without the Jersey 1 due to having one of the league's deepest rosters, built through the drafts and trades by Vice President David Griffin and General Manager Trajan Langdon. The head coach Green has a rotation that can go 11 players deep on any match day. Williamson's paycheck is already set to rise by $20 million to $33 million in the next year under his contract extension, and before the season, Griffin extended McCollum and forward Larry Nance Jr.'s contract as well. Coming up, the Pelicans seem to have a bright future. Zion Williamson is the franchise's face, Ingram is a cornerstone, and CJ McCollum is a solid offensive threat. One of the most common phrases from an NBA coach is the need to build a second unit that pushes so hard that the first unit is guilted into playing even harder. The Pelicans are taking it a step further. Their third unit drives their second unit to improve, and the second unit pushes the starters to improve as well. The Pelicans benefit from using alternative lineup combinations depending on the scenario. Williamson, Ingram, and Jones were missing from the Pelicans lineup against the Mavericks, but they still won. You might ask why. The answer is they owe it to the depth of the roster. The young guys have stepped up with two seasoned players out of the starting lineup. Whether it's Herb Jones winning games with defense and savvy plays, to Jose Alvarado becoming a more significant part of the offense, while Trey Murphy III is nailing down shots, or Dyson Daniels is doing a bit of everything. The opponents better watch out as the Pelicans have a soaring, dangerous roster crafted. Following up, Zion Williamson was labeled as a generational talent. Zion Williamson's fitness coach recognized him as a generational talent as the New Orleans Pelicans star geared up to return to the court for the start of the new NBA season on the 19th of October. When he was chosen first overall in the 2019 NBA draft, Williamson was a highly talked about prospect out of Duke. His size and weight have been a concern, given his incredible vertical ability. The issues have transitioned into one of the sport's biggest storylines. The 2020 All-Star was out for the entire 2018 season when he was focused on recovering from a foot injury. Fortunately, Williamson is now as fit and ready as ever to help the Pelicans make the Western Conference playoffs. Williamson worked with strength and conditioning coach Jasper Bibbs for 2 months in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. To improve his body composition, the 22-year-old worked out twice a day and strictly followed a detailed nutrition plan, and Bibbs is eager for fans to see the results on the court. They'll be excited, Bibbs said to The Athletic. The fans will be ecstatic to see such a generational talent playing the game he adores, with the joy he exudes on the court and the athleticism he brings to the game. The fitness coach added, saying that people would be very excited. You can see how excited Williamson is to get on the court and show everyone what he can do. Williamson is undeniably one of the best athletes of his generation, combining flexibility, vertical leap, size, and power in a way that possibly has never been seen before. Bibbs ensured Williamson's dedication ahead of what is expected to be a vital campaign for the power forward, not to mention last year's prediction about the Pelicans' future. How a year can change the course of events in the world of sports. It made a difference for the New Orleans Pelicans, not to mention a big one. Last year, Zion had been ruled out for the season. The Pelicans were struggling, and the media was targeting the 22-year-old. People questioned Zion's passion for the game, his work ethic, and whether New Orleans should have a basketball team. There were several fat jokes and internet trolls, which is why it's ironic that the same people are now labeling Zion classless for breaching their sacred unwritten rules after he concluded a recent game with a crowd puller. News anchors, sports analysts, and former basketball players were jumping on the Pelicans' hate bandwagon last year. Jalen Rose, Mike Wilson, and Stephen A. Smith all openly expected that Zion would leave New Orleans and that the Pelicans would relocate to another city, most possibly Seattle. Flash forward to the current NBA season. Zion is now an MVP contender, with the rising New Orleans Pelicans standing first. Let's look at some of the teams ranked below the Pelicans. We realize that these sports pundits are hired to give their analysis and hot takes. Still, their statements about the Pelicans were highly ridiculous. The teams below the Pelicans in the overall win standings standings for the past 10 years are Sacramento Kings, New York Knicks, Detroit Pistons, Minnesota Timberwolves, Los Angeles Lakers, Philadelphia 76ers, and Phoenix Suns. Yet, we don't hear such harsh criticism from the analysts for these teams. And if we look at their statement, why not move the New York Knicks to Seattle? Their fans would be delighted when they hear this. Or, let's rebrand the iconic Los Angeles Lakers. The definition of class, the one and only Phoenix Suns? Or should we call them the Tucson Suns? How is that prediction of the analysts coming? We think it was absurd. The club's future is the brightest in the NBA. The franchise isn't failing, and the Pelicans squad is playing in front of a packed house of loyal fans who support their team. We're curious whether these folks want to confess how far they went wrong here. Zion is playing like an MVP contender, and the Pelicans are in first place. The club team is located where they belong, in New Orleans, and will remain there. Moving on, Zion Williamson has no reason to apologize. Despite missing 2 starters, the Pelicans won with a dominating third quarter and another outstanding play by Zion. It was the Pelicans' 6th straight victory, and they now appear to be one of the finest all-around teams in the NBA. Still, they're only getting started since we've yet to see them at peak level. The Pelicans should be the hot topic of the NBA right now for the way they're playing, but the game's conclusion against the Suns has everyone talking. For those who don't know what's up, Zion Williamson slammed down a destructive 360 windmill dunk at the end of the game that wounded the Suns' feelings. After the game, there were discussions from the Suns about sportsmanship. The 22-year-old then apologized in the post-game press conference, saying, "That was a little out of character for me. I got carried away a little bit. I admit that. But I was in the locker room when my brothers were down because the Suns sent us home last year. That's a tough moment to be a part of. So, at that moment, I got carried away. I admit that." Zion Williamson was simply trying to amuse the incredible home crowd. No Suns player surrounding him. The Pelicans simply had the game in hand. Also, the Suns didn't consider the degree of anger Zion had from being injured for so long and dealing with all the criticism that came with it. That 360 wasn't intended solely for the Suns. That dunk was all he had to endure. It was payback for the unfairness of his injuries. Or, in the strongest possible terms, Zion responded to all the doubts and questions he had heard about himself. And Zion did it to delight the fans who pay a lot of money to see him play. The 22-year-old was simply playing his part as an athlete and entertainer. Lastly, LeBron James is all praise for Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson is the very definition of a one-of-a-kind. Since the NBA draft, many people, including us, have needed help finding an appropriate player comparison for a player with Williamson's frame, athleticism, and skill set. LeBron James may have cracked the code for us. Williamson was, as usual, dominant in the first of 4 meetings between the Lakers and Pelicans this season, contributing as a scorer and playmaker. Following the game, James spoke extensively about Williamson's off-season physical transformation, drawing on some Hall of Famers to explain why the 22-year-old is such a particular player. LeBron James thinks the 22-year-old is in great shape and is a never-before-seen talent. He adds, "We've never seen a talent of his size, speed, high athleticism, just like Giannis, just like a Barkley or Shaq. There are certain talents in our league that you've never seen before." Keep in mind that this is James's 20th year, and he's a one-of-a-kind superstar in his own right. The fact that James has seen and done it all over his career truly adds credibility to his claim that Williamson is unlike anything we have ever seen. The comparisons to Hall of Famers are the cherry on top. James's high regard for Williamson's game extended beyond the above-mentioned comparisons. By drawing parallels between Williamson and other left-handed stars he's faced over the last 20 years, the 37-year-old reminded us that he has seen it all. It's so funny when you hear people say, "Stop him from going left." It's the same thing I heard for so many years with Manu Ginobili, Lamar Odom. When you're great, it doesn't matter what you do, they're going to figure out a way. That's a wrap for this video. Will the future be promising for the Pelicans? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.